All right, here we're on Chapter 0 on Arithmetic Review. This is Section 0.3 on Orders of Operation. So the order of operations is done through PEMDAS. So we've talked about that in the first video or two. And PEMDAS, what does that stand for? That stands for P is parentheses or other grouping symbols. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work from the inside out. So you work from the innermost set of parentheses or grouping symbols and then work your way outwards. The next one is exponents for e. So then we have all the exponents like x squared, and if x is a 2, then we have 2 squared, so that would be 4. Then we have multiply and divide. Now these two kind of go together, and what we do is we work these left to right. Okay, so it doesn't matter if there's a multiply then a divide, we always just go from left to right and do them in order. Same thing then goes with add and subtract. We also work these from left to right. So if there was an add first, then a subtract, and then another add, we just do it in that order, and we go from left to right on our problem that we're working. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use that PEMDAS, and we're going to simplify basically these problems. And so what we do is look at the problem. And what do we have first? Well, we have grouping symbols. That means we have something inside we need to do first. And so we need to take a negative 6 divided by 6. Well, if we think about that, we could rewrite this as negative 6 over 6 cubed. Well, then 6 over 6, well, we can reduce that to a negative 1 over 1. And so that gives us a negative 1 cubed. And a negative 1 cubed, well, remember, an odd number of negatives is going to stay negative, so we just get a negative 1 as our final answer then. Okay. Now, what about the next one here? Here we have a grouping symbol, but it really doesn't do anything inside of it. Here we've got a grouping symbol, the absolute value, but it does do something. It's going to actually do something. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rewrite it as we go across. So we're going to take 3 plus 8 divided by the absolute value of a negative 4 is going to become a positive 4. Okay, so that was our thing we did first. Now we don't have any exponents. We don't have any more grouping symbols. So the next thing is we have this division. So now we're going to take 8 divided by 4. Well, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So that gives us 3 plus 2. And now 3 plus 2 is just 5. Okay, so we had to kind of get rid of the grouping symbol, in this case, the absolute value. Then we did our division, and then we did our addition. Now, what about this one? Well, this one, what we can do is we can say, okay, well, we got to work inside the grouping symbols first. So they have one set of brackets, and then we have a set of parentheses. So let's get rid of those parentheses first. So if we do that, we have a negative 9, and then we have minus, then 2 minus 5, well, that's going to give us a minus 3. Now here I'm kind of skipping some steps because what we normally would do 2 plus a negative 5. Take the larger minus a smaller, so 5 minus 2 is 3. And then we take the sign of larger as negative, and so that's how we got to this negative 3. So now that we've been practicing a while, now we can sometimes see how to do these, and so instead of writing out all the steps, sometimes we can do this in our head. Then we have our in bracket, and then divided by our negative 6. Okay. Now what do we have? Well, we have a negative negative, so double negative, and so what we can do is we can say, okay, well, minus a minus becomes plus, and so now what we have is this set of grouping symbols we have to work with, negative 9 plus 3. Well, we take the larger 9 minus a smaller 3, which is 6, and so that's actually a 6, but our sign of the larger is negative, so it's a negative 6. So now we take a negative 6 divided by a negative 6. Well, the same thing divided by itself gives us 1 because the negative divided by negative is positive, and so we have the positive part, and then 6 divided by 6, we get the 1. All right, how about this one? Well, if we think about this, really that's a negative 10 plus a negative 6 all over a negative 2 squared. So the numerator is an addition. The denominator, we have exponents. So with those exponents, what we need to do is we need to simplify that first. And since we have this fraction, what we can do is we can work in the numerator with anything that can be done. Then we can work with the denominator and do anything that can be done. And then after that, we can simplify it. So minus 10 plus a negative 6, that's a negative 16. A negative 2 squared, well, 2 times 2 is 4. Negative times negative is positive, so that becomes a positive 4. Okay. And then what do we have? Well, after that, we take a negative 16 divided by 4, and that's going to give us a negative 4. And that would be our answer. Okay. All right, moving on here, we have a little bit more complex one. Now we have a lot more stuff in the numerator and a lot more stuff in the denominator. So let's kind of work through and see what we have. Well, we have 2 plus 4. Now we have this absolute value. Well, we have to simplify that. So let's keep that because we notice we have a squared we have to simplify first. So 2 squared is 4. So that's a 7 plus 4. Now the denominator, it's completely separate so far. We don't have to worry about it. So we have a multiplication and a multiplication. So we have 4 times 2, well that's 8, plus 3 times 5, that's 15. Okay, so now we've simplified that a little bit. Now 7 plus 4, that's going to give us 11. So 2 plus 4 times absolute value of 11 all over 8 plus 15. So it's going to give us 23. Now we can take our absolute value, and that's going to be 2 plus 4 times 11, dropping the absolute value symbols over 23. Now we multiply first, so that's going to give us 44. And if we go ahead and take 44 plus 2, it's going to give us 46 over 23. Now 46 divided by 23, well, if we take that times 2, that gives us 46. So that's going to give us an answer of 2. All right, so that wasn't too bad. How about this one? Well, a lot more stuff, but it's really just simplifying using PEMDAS and we get to our final answer. All right, so how about we do this? So we'll take 13 and we're just going to work across and simplify anything we can do. Then we have a negative 3 squared. Well, negative 3 times negative 3 is plus 9. Then we have 4 times negative 3. That's going to give us negative 12. Then we have plus 1. And then we have minus. Now here we have a negative 10 minus a negative 6. Well, let's get rid of this. A negative is positive, so that helps us a little bit. Now we have a negative 10 plus 6, so a larger minus smaller. 10 minus 6 is 4. Sign of that's going to be negative, so it's going to be minus a negative 4. Okay. So now on the bottom, what do we have? Well, we've got braces, brackets, and parentheses. So we really have to pay attention to what we're doing here. So inside of here, we have a set of grouping symbols. So what we can do is say 4 plus 5, well, that's going to give us 9. Then that's going to be divided by, now we've got this set of brackets. Well, let's go ahead and kind of work our way through. And we're not going to break any rules. We're going to do several things at one time. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take care of this. And then we're just going to leave that there. So when we take care of all that, I'm going to convert this now to parentheses. So 4 squared, what is that? Well, that's 16 minus 3 squared. Well, 3 squared is 9. And then that's times, so I'll have another set of parentheses. That's okay. 4 minus 3 is 1. Well, 4 times minus 3 is 1. That just really could have just left that as 9. We don't have to have that. And then we have minus our 8. And then we have our in parenthesis, and we have our in brace, and then plus 12. Okay, so we kind of worked along each little piece and replaced it with things, and now we have this. Now what can we do? Well, what we need to do now is look, we have plus, minus, plus. Well, here we can kind of simplify that. Minus a minus could become plus, so that would help us. Now let's see. We have 13 minus 12. Well, that would give us a 1. Plus 9 is 10. And so that's 10 plus 1 is 11 plus 4. That looks to be 15. So that was just all adding. So we just kind of made it so it's simple. So you could have done 1 plus 4 is 5. And you know, that subtract off 12 is going to be in minus 7. And just work our way through that. Or we just get our 15, kind of how I did it there. Now what we need to do is still work inside of these parentheses here. So we have a -9 and a -8. So that's going to be -9 minus 8. So it's going to be minus 17 plus 16. So now let's go ahead. Now let's convert this to that. So we have 9 divided by, and what's in here? Well, we had again, that's a -17 plus 16. So it's a -1. And, oh, oops, -1. We forgot the X in parenthesis there. Oh, wait, we did take that. Never mind. We're okay. That's fine. Yeah. So and then -1. And so, and then plus 12. Okay. So this one's taking a little longer because we have a lot more on the bottom that had pieces to work with. So what we have now is we have 9 divided by a -1. Well, 9 divided by a -1, if we write that like that, that's just going to give us a -9. Okay. So we still have 15 in the numerator. Then we have -9 plus 12. Well, that's going to give me 3. Well, if I simplify that, 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay. Now, if you need to and write out more steps along the way, that's fine. You know, because I kind of went, you know, -3 squared and got the 9 and did all that, and then after that, I added all these together and got 15. And so, you know, it depends on how you want to work this. That it doesn't really matter as long as you get to the final answer and you followed PEMDAS the whole way through. Okay. All right, one last one here before we take a break. Here we have two fractions in a numerator, two fractions in a denominator, and then we have that divide. So what we need to do is simplify. So in doing that, what we need to do is we need to find the common denominator in the numerator, find the common denominator in the denominator, and then go from there. So if we look in the numerator, we have a 7 and a 2. Both of those are prime. And so what we can do is we can take 4 over 7 times 2 over 2 plus 1 over 2, oops, not time, plus times, times 7 over 7. And the denominator is the same thing. We have the 7 and a 2, so we can take 4 over 7 times 2 over 2. Now we're subtracting 1 over 2 times 7 over 7. Well, this gives us 8 over 14 plus 7 over 14 all over. This gives us, again, 8 over 14 minus 7 over 14. Well, 8 plus 7, that's going to give us 15 over 14 divided by, and now 8 minus 7 is going to be 1 over 14. Now, what do we have? Well, if we want to, what we can do is we can do this two different ways. What we have to do is get rid of this denominator, so we multiply by the reciprocal. But if we do that, we also have to do it in the numerator. So then everything in the denominator, this cancels this, those are both 1, so it's all 1 down here. Now in the numerator, that cancels, and that shows me that the only thing left is just 15. Okay. Now if we rewrote that and said, okay, we have 15 over 14 divided by 1 over 14, then we know keep the first one the same, change to times, flip the second one, and then at that point we can say, okay, now we can cancel those. Both of those are 1, and we get the same value of 15. So if you need to rewrite this in this form to be able to do it, that's fine. Or just remember, multiply by the reciprocal here to get the denominator to be 1. But whatever you multiply in the denominator, you have to multiply in the numerator. And then we get our final answer of 15. All right, we'll pause here and come back for more.